Today on Locked On Red Wings, Showtime is coming to Detroit.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And Scotty, it wasn't long after we recorded our episode yesterday that the news came down. I mean, what's funny is I scheduled a social media post to promote the new episode at 7, just come out at 7 a.m. Obviously, the episode premieres at midnight every day, so people have the episode to wake up and drive to work with. But an hour after the social media post pushes the promotion of the episode, it came out that Patrick Kane has landed with the Detroit Red Wings. 1-year deal, $2.75 million cap hit. Technically, it's prorated. He's going to make a little over $2 million officially, but the salary cap is what matters here in context to Red Wings fans and the Red Wings as an organization. Scotty, I know we talked about it yesterday, but when you first saw the news break, what was your instant reaction? And how do you feel now after having hours to sit on it?
My instant reaction was, there goes yesterday's episode, to be honest with you. That was actually my first reaction. Yeah, man. I mean, obviously my opinion of it hasn't changed in 24 hours. The low risk nature of like the deal that he was given is definitely important to this entire thing. Like, I have a ton of reasons is not the word I'm thinking of. My mind is blank, but I have a ton of like bullet points on why I'm like somewhat cautious from this, but it's also it's low risk. It's the rest of the year and it's $2 million. And even if it was, $8 million, again, it's the rest of the season. Like it's off the books at the end of the year. So I also think that from Kane's perspective, I think that the only reason he is fine with the rest of the year deal thing is to prove it, right? He wants to prove that he is going to not be hindered by this injury or old age or the down year last year or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if he has even a semi-decent season production-wise, he could earn himself a 2-year deal, this summer. So I get it from that perspective. I know there's some questions. We'll talk about all of it, obviously.
Break it all down.
What?
I said nothing. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't hear you. But I think that look, man, this team needs help, depth scoring. And like we've talked about, just kind of the not traditional names, adding more and filling more of the back of the net over the last couple of weeks. Patrick Kane's one of the greatest dudes to ever put on skates. Like that's, you know what I mean? He's one of the most talented hockey players ever. And yeah, I think that again, my opinion hasn't changed in 24 hours. I still have all the hesitations. I guess that's the word I was thinking about earlier. I still have, but the low risk nature of this deal kind of puts my mind at least a little bit more at ease with some of those hesitations and cautions that I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think cautiously optimistic is the best term to use in this type of situation, right? I mean, like you said, the low risk nature makes this extremely swallowable, right? Like this is not a tough pill to swallow by any stretch of the imagination. He at one point was the player with the highest IQ in hockey and the best passer in the game, without a doubt. Like that's what made him and DeBrincat in Chicago such a dangerous duo, is his playmaking ability combined with DeBrincat's finishing ability. You reconnect those two together, you link them back up, and suddenly there's the potential of one of the most lethal scoring pairs in the NHL. But this isn't Patrick Kane of 3 years ago. This isn't Patrick Kane of even 2 years ago. You know, this is a guy who's got a lot to prove. And he does have a full no trade clause, which makes sense because location was a huge reason for him agreeing to sign with the Red Wings. He wanted a team that's travel schedule was going to be very easy. And I'm sure after signing a deal a month into the season, he doesn't want to then get uprooted 2 months later at the trade deadline. You know what I mean? There's a long list of pros and cons with Patrick Kane on this one. And I guess should I lead off with the pros or should I lead off with the cons in this situation?
I think we lead off with the cons and we end on a positive note.
Okay, that's fair because I actually have a fair amount of pros. But my biggest issue with the deal, and this is why I said no to begin with, is players don't come back from hip resurfacing surgery. And there are 3 recent examples of players that have not come back from this. I brought one up yesterday in Nicholas Backstrom. He had hip resurfacing surgery, tried to play this year, couldn't. He is LTI retired for the rest of his career, more than likely. It's unlikely he returns. Yeah. Robin Lehner, I believe, had both of his hips resurfaced for the Vegas Golden Knights after signing a massive deal, still has not returned. And Ryan Kessler of the Anaheim Ducks, I also believe, was one guy who had a hip resurfacing and tried to return and could not. So the chances of him actually coming back and being a meaningful contributor, honestly, probably pretty low. But like we said, the low risk nature of this, if he can come back and be a 50 to 75% version of Patrick Kane, hell, him last year with the New York Rangers and Chicago Blackhawks battling through this injury, put up 57 points, which would have been good for second best on the Detroit Red Wings, makes this so much more palatable, knowing that even if he comes back and he's better than he was last year, hurt, he's still going to be a pretty decent playmaker. My other con with this is he's always been a defensive liability, even when he was perfectly healthy in the past. When he was in his prime, one of the best offensive-minded wingers in the game, that didn't matter because he was going to score 110 points. It didn't matter what he was going to do defensively on the ice because he was going to score 2 while he was out there or help score 2 for his team while he was out there. Now that his offense production has slid and he has been battling through injuries and he's going to try and come back from this surgery that no one comes back from, that defensive liability is still going to be there. How is he going to be able to contribute in a system like Derek Lalonde's, which is so emphasized? The emphasis is so heavy on the defensive side of the game, at least in theory it is, so to speak. And also, like, you know, I've said it a ton before. It just comes down to how many games, if he isn't working out, is he going to cost you before you pull the plug? Those are the cons in my eyes. You know, that's why I'm the cautious side of my optimism.
Yeah, no, and I agree with those sentiments. I think that the assumption, or maybe assumption isn't the right word, but the thought that we're getting like anywhere close to like peak Patrick Kane is just not even close to my interpretation of the situation. And like, if you are, you know, don't let me rain on a parade, right? Like if you're believing that Patrick Kane's going to come in and he's going to be, you know, like this phenomenal offensive force again, you know, don't let me make your sunny day cloudy. But like, I have a really hard time believing that he's going to come in and be like this like offensive force for all the reasons you just mentioned. Like, he was hurt last year. He and again, like, worst year of his career was still have been like arguably the second best on the Red Wings. Not saying the team doesn't still need help when it comes to the offensive side of the puck at all. And I hope that it's a seamless transition. I hope that he produces genuinely. Like, obviously, I would rather be wrong and have it benefit the Detroit Red Wings 10 times out of 10. I don't think that highly of myself, but like, that's where I stand. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a definite, and again, low risk contract, which we said a million times, but like I have a really hard time believing that at 35 years old, coming off of this this major surgery that has ended them, like, and multiple. As somebody tweeted, I don't remember who, so I can't give credit. I apologize for that, but somebody said this surgery is not undefeated, but it definitely has a winning record, right? Like, it's a career alterer. And that, with his age, plus the fact that last year was the worst year of his career, it's just Like there's definitely no guarantee that this is going to come out and he's just going to be like this crazy point producer and is going to be exactly what the Red Wings need offensively. That being said, we've already talked about some of them. There's certainly still upside here, and there is certainly still pros to the situation and reasons to be excited.
Absolutely. And we'll get to those pros in a couple minutes here. But first, we got to head to a quick break. Got to talk to you guys today about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are breaking down the pros and cons of the Patrick Kane acquisition. Real quick, before we get to the pros, Scotty, just want to correct myself. Robin Lehner had double hip surgery, but I'm not entirely sure that it is hip resurfacing surgery. He still has not played since then, but I want to correct myself. It was Kessler and Backstrom both did have resurfacing surgery, but I do not believe Lehner, that is the exact surgery that he had. Hip surgery, but not exactly resurfacing. Just wanted to correct myself here before we get back into the pros. Scotty, when it comes to the pros with Patrick Kane, I do think there still are a fair share of them as well. I mean, one,
I hope
you've mentioned it, right? This is a low risk move, right? If Patrick Kane can come back in a meaningful fashion at 50%, 75%, even if it's just 60 points and it's an improvement over last year and it's 60 points, let's say prorated 62 games, whatever he's going to play. So not exactly 62, a 60-point pace, let's say. That I think is a definitive win, right? You're getting a guy at 35 years old coming off a major surgery who was once one of the best in the game, putting up meaningful contributions on the ice. That is a huge win, no matter what way you slice it. Like if he hits that ceiling, that potential, that is an absolute win. Again, I mentioned it in the segment 1. Linking him back up with DeBrincat has the potential of paying off dividends for the Detroit Red Wings. Also, the low risk nature. If he doesn't work out, if he's bad, you have no problems with just scratching him. You have no problems with just not playing him, and you have no problems with not re-signing him. There's not a lot to lose, and there is a lot to be gained if Patrick Kane does or does not work out. When it comes to him as a player, I think that's the biggest thing, right? The chances may be slim that he has a bounce back year, but the potential this team has in adding a guy like that and the potential he has at producing on the ice could be the piece this team needs potentially to take them from contenders to like in the mix. But again, big grain of salt with that if.
For sure. Yeah. Again, like I don't have to sell people on like the Patrick Kane, the player, you know what I mean? Like we don't have to come on here and talk about like his performance on the ice and talk about what he has done on the ice and his accomplishments on the ice, et cetera, et cetera. Like that's not something that we have to sell. And like everyone that has followed the game of hockey for even any remote period of time is aware of what this dude was on the ice at his peak. And certainly if he can, even again, like as you said earlier, 70%, even 50% of like what quote unquote normal Patrick Kane was before, the injuries started piling up and before this surgery and whatnot, the Wings will probably take it. I think that for me, and like if there's anything more you want to say about it, him, the player, you're more than welcome to. But like for me, I think the I don't know if biggest is the right word, but it might be the biggest thing to me is the impact of this move from like a front office perspective and like what it means from Yzerman's perspective. Like, I think that this is a move that a team that believes they have a chance of making the playoffs makes.
Yeah.
And it was reported by multiple of our fantastic beat writers in this city that one of the reasons that Kane chose Detroit was because of the X's and O's of Lalone's system. I think that is music to everybody's ears. I think that again, like the mindset that Yzerman currently has, in the sense of like he is actively making moves a third of the way through the season. You know, we'll see what he does as the season goes along. Like in the middle of the year, making moves to better the team and bolster up for a playoff run. And I also think that from an even bigger picture, just the concept of somebody that was a big name wanted to come to the Detroit Red Wings. And I think that can't be undersold or understated either. That this is one of the biggest names in my generation, really. And when you tell in the history of hockey, and like the fact that Yzerman in this front office were able to tell him to come play for your franchise is, I think, is something that is worth noting as well. So like those three things from like the on the ice, we've talked about at length, really, in the last 48 hours and the last couple of months, and like since like July, we've talked about what it could potentially mean for the Wings on the ice. But I think it does send a message to the fan base that this front office is willing to do, make any move in order to win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually do think that is the biggest takeaway from this, is whether or not Patrick Kane works out for the Red Wings on the ice. I think that it means a lot for the Red Wings and the city of Detroit as a sports organization, right? I mean, look at the acquisitions that Steve Yzerman's made these last couple of years. I mean, he's gone into free agency swinging. Some guys he's had to spend a little bit too much on, but he's had no problems convincing players to come to Detroit and buying in on what this team's future is. And then it's capped off. And I know there are mitigating factors around Kane and DeBrincat, but those are two both big names, maybe not with Kane anymore, not an all-star caliber player, but still a very big name. For him to be able to get a DeBrincat and a Kane and convince them to come here, and I know DeBrincat took very little convincing, he wanted to come home, that is a huge message to, like you said, the Red Wings fans, what Steve Yzerman's angle is here. Like, he's trying to take this team to the next level. This is a move that a team that's trying to compete and make the playoffs makes. You take a flyer on a guy who could take you over the top. Whether or not he will, again, remains to be seen given the surgery that he's coming off of and whenever he actually is ready to play. But this signals that players want to come here again. Detroit is a destination city for some of the top end talent and biggest names in the NHL. And on top of that, they still have a ton of cap room to maneuver with. I understand that obviously Seider and Raymond are going to need contracts. You have big contracts coming up with a lot of players in a couple of years. But as it stands right now, the Red Wings have, we talked about it, the rolling cap space, guys coming off the books. So you have space constantly to sign new guys. Great way to set it up. The Red Wings at the deadline, and this is the other pro, if Kane can help you stay in it, and even if he can't help you stay in it, right? Like some people are fretting the $2.7 million. That means nothing for the Detroit Red Wings as it stands right now.
You have cap space and it's a 1-year deal. That means literally nothing.
The Red Wings still have $10 million to work with come trade deadline time. If the Red Wings are in it, you become legitimately one of the sexiest buyers at the deadline from another team's perspectives. You have cap space. You have draft capital. You have prospects. You are a team that any team in the NHL that's looking to sell is looking to make a deal with, because you just have everything a seller is looking for. And if you're in that race, and if Patrick Kane can help you stay in that race, you're a Red Wings team that legitimately is a threat to make a push at the playoffs. So when you talk about Patrick Kane, there is the potential of a huge upside. I think it might be a slim. That's why I'm cautiously optimistic because of the surgery. But if Patrick Kane can be 50% of what he is, that's a huge boon on the ice. I think the acquisition of him as a name, combined with the acquisitions that you've gotten over the last couple of years here, signals a huge shift in the perception of Detroit as a destination. And then thirdly, even with this acquisition, you are one of the most attractive deadline teams for sellers at this deadline. If you're a buyer, teams are going to be looking to make deals with you because you're not going to need the help of a third team to make deals work. This is why, and there have been bumps in the road, absolutely, with the quote-unquote Yzer plan. Haven't been perfect. But this is why Steve Yzerman is one of the best in the business. He has positioned this team this season to make waves. Now, whether or not they do is up to Derek Lalonde and the players on the ice to execute. But there is a potential here to be a very good team down the stretch for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, Scotty and I are going to preview the game against the New York Rangers. Ironically, the first two games that the Red Wings will play with Patrick Kane signed to a new contract will be the Rangers and Blackhawks on back-to-back nights. Fun little tidbit for all you Red Wings fans out there. When we come back on Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Game Time. You know, if you want to see Patrick Kane's first game as a Red Wing, whenever that may be, you may look to other services to try and get those tickets and then be shocked when you find out at all the fees that they charge you. Well, you don't have to worry about those fees with Game Time. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from the seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without any of those pesky hidden fees. And you buy those tickets in 2 seconds with 2 taps. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. They have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts, it's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for Red Wings hockey, football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, and so much more. And with zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% in savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, we got to move on to previewing the New York Rangers. And normally we don't mind kind of tacking the preview at the end of a conversation, the end of an episode. But there's a lot of roster moves that have and injuries that have been going on ahead of this Rangers game, Scotty. Namely, Dlyan Larkin is confirmed out for the game against the Rangers, and that stinks.
Yes, it does. I also want to say, when do you want to start messing with like potential lines? Probably when Kane's closer to playing.
Well, step one, he has to officially sign with the Red Wings, right? Like, I don't think he's officially signed yet. All we have is beat reporters confirming.
He can, yeah, there's a difference between officially signed and like team reported. I think he is officially signed, but I don't think the team has announced it yet. That's all.
Yeah, of course, by the time people are listening to this, it probably will be.
Right.
But I think you're right. And, you know, Frank Saravelli mentioned today that one of the things to keep in mind was that DeBrincat recently was taken off the top line and paired with JT Compher. And that goes into what we were saying yesterday, that Compher, DeBrincat, and Kane are probably your likely line because JT Compher brings that two-way game to that line that is so offensively oriented that he could be the perfect fit. Plus, he's a pretty dang good playmaker himself. And now you have two people feeding DeBrincat. That's a pretty sexy line.
For sure.
So I think your top line for what it stands is going to be Raymond, Larkin, and maybe Veleno. I think you could see a rotation, but Veleno's playing really well on that top line right now. But that second line, suddenly your second line's the one that's got all that extra scoring power on it, with DeBrincat getting fed with Patrick Kane, assuming he is again healthy and can keep up with the game at an NHL level and a second line level. But that's again making the assumption that Yzerman did his due diligence and that Kane is healthy enough to play this game.
Yeah, that's back down the rabbit hole, just talking in circles, the risk and the reward of the whole thing, whatever. But I do think that when he gets closer to playing, we should mess with some lines, because I think there's a lot of people have already thrown out some really fascinating line combos there. But yeah, this hockey game is the Rangers game here. We have, like you said, Larkin is out. That stings. He's out for this game and then questionable for Thursday, or is he confirmed out for both? Like
I think
I
it's
mean,
just questionable for Thursday.
yeah. So that's not fun. Obviously, like you said, Justin Holl day to day, he's questionable. Walman playing, Berger recalled, Billy Husso in net. So yeah, just a lot of like roster moves that happened. All like obviously the Kane thing was the big one, but there's a lot of moving parts on Tuesday. And going into this Rangers game, where the Rangers are a very good hockey team, 15-4-1 on the year, have been one of the better teams in the league for majority of the season, are very good at a lot of things. We'll talk about kind of their team ranks here in a second, but I don't think anyone is thrilled about going into the Rangers game without Dlyan Larkin.
No, it definitely isn't. And Ansar Khan of M Life tweeted out the practice lines. And, you know, at the top line, for what it's worth, is pretty good because JT Compher's been playing really well. He's in during practice with your top line center. Lucas Raymond, of course, on the wing with Alex DeBrincat. There's potential there. Oh, hey, breaking news. It's official. Patrick Kane has signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Red Wings. That is official, happening right as we were recording this at 7:15.
There you go.
So there we go. I'm glad it happened while we were recording and not right after, so we could get it. But anyways, yeah, I mean, that top line still has potential of being pretty dang good. It's just after that you start to get a little questions in the air. Andrew Kopp's your second line center during practice. Fabry and Berggren on the wings. I love seeing Berggren getting an immediate shot at the top six. Last time he was up, he was relegated to scratch/fourth line minutes. Veleno 3C. I'm happy with that. Perron, Rasmussen on his wings. Fisher, Kostin, and Sprong, your fourth line. I mean, it's not all awful. I mean, obviously losing Larkin's a huge blow, but the offensive depth is so deep that I'm not really too concerned. It's just going up against the Rangers where it becomes a little bit stressful. And then your pairs are back to normal with Holl being questionable tomorrow. You have Walman, Seider, Sherratt, Petrie, Mata, and Gostisbehere. I mean, those are your pairs normally. So, I mean, just losing Larkin's a huge blow, especially going up against the New York Rangers. But it's just really nice to see that this depth is so good that I'm not like freaking out totally like I thought I would be. In previous years, if you didn't have Larkin, there would be no scoring on this team. But that's not necessarily the case anymore. Raymond's on a heater. DeBrincat's heating back up. Compher's been really good. The only part of that offensive group that I'm kind of annoyed by right now is Kopp as 2C with how he's been performing. But we both know that does, just because those are the lines in practice doesn't mean that's exactly going to be how the minutes are distributed or how the lines will look come puck drop. So if it were up to me, I'd have Veleno as 2C with how he's been playing. But what do I know? I'm not Derek Lalonde. I'm just a guy with a mic sitting in his townhouse. So like I'm not going to armchair GM Derek Lalonde too much when this team's on a 3-game heater. Now if they're on a 3-5-3 stretch, then I will. But right now, he's got to pass.
Yeah, I've been winning games lately, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, but this Rangers team is tough, man. I mean, we were talking about it off air a little bit before. They are second in fewest goals given up and goals against average, at least. They have the third highest team save percentage in the NHL. They are 7th in the penalty kill. They are 3rd in the power play. They're 12th in goals scored. I mean, my favorite stat, they are the best team in the NHL in the faceoff circle. So, I mean, you got a heck of a task going into New York. And it's a TNT game. My goodness.
Wasn't the last game in New York against the Rangers at the start of the month also a TNT game? Am I recalling that correctly? This is I hope this isn't hardcore deja vu all the way down to the scores. I'm hoping for
not.
Red Wings riding a 3-game heater going into this game. Obviously, this is a huge game for the Red Wings. This is the toughest game on your schedule for the foreseeable future. Definitely winnable games after this one, but going back to the Boston Bruins, this is one of the best teams in the NHL. 15-4-1 for a minute. I think they still are technically having the better record than the Boston Bruins, because the Bruins have lost 3 straight now, I believe, after losing that first game to the Red Wings last week.
We end franchises. It's really no big deal.
And we get coaches fired. So
it's just kind of what we do.
It's kind of what the Red Wings do. They're a little bit of a spoiler, but they're first in the Metropolitan Division. Panarin's got 30 points in 20 games. You listed out all the stats. They're middle of the pack, 5-on-5. Best special teams, best goaltending, one of the best goaltending groups in the league with Shesterkin at 914. Jonathan Quick having a renaissance. 8 games played, 930 save percentage. I mean, with the Boston Bruins, you could at least kind of have a keys to the game, picking like certain things Bruins maybe weren't the best at that you could kind of capitalize on it. The Red Wings ended up doing, but you don't have that situation with the New York Rangers. Like trying to look at the keys to the game, it's literally going to be, you're going to have to play your best hockey you've ever played. That's it. That is the key to the game. Play the best possible hockey this team can without your captain.
Yeah, man. The only thing in team stats that the Wings are better than the Rangers at this season is just goals for a game. The Wings are 4th in the NHL in average goals scored a game, but the Rangers are still 12th, and they're only 0.3 of a goal a game behind you. It's not like it's astronomical difference between 4th and 12th there. So you're going to have to. This is a game where like. I'm not trying to be too dramatic with like a game on a Wednesday night in November, but like this is a game when we talked last year about why this team needed goal scoring and why we wanted to go after DeBrincat, etc. This is the game you point to, right? This is a team that has some of the best defense and goaltending in the entire NHL. Last year's team absolutely gets blanked by the New York Rangers. You went out, you got a ton of free agents, you tried to bolster the depth scoring, and you went out and you got someone who we believe could have been one of the best goal scorers in the NHL this season. These are the games as like the reason why you go after someone like DeBrincat. This is where like, you know what? The depth scoring may get shut down. We're going to lean on somebody to put the puck in the back of the net tonight, and it's going to be a star. I truly think that like this is the epitome of why you address goaltending or goal scoring rather in the off season.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with you on everything you said, except for one little thing. You said you don't want to make too much of a game in November. I will say I will absolutely make too much of a game in November because this is a season, Scotty, and I've said it a lot of times. You need every point you can get, especially with this Atlantic Division being as difficult as it can be. I keep harping on it. I would say, and plus, like these types of games against the Rangers, and you touched on this as well, like these are huge litmus tests. Like you're trying to become a New York Rangers. You're trying to become a Boston Bruins. You want to become one of the upper echelon teams in the NHL. So how you perform against these teams in the regular season, I mean, it does kind of matter, right? For, the locker room confidence, the fan base confidence, Steve Yzerman, how he views this team and what this team needs. And this team already embarrassed you once this season. I mean, yeah, it was 5-3 by the end, but that's because it was 5-0 at the end of this 2 and they took their foot off the pedal. So that one regard, I will actually say, like, I think that this game does matter a lot because these games against the really tough opponents, they're going to show you what kind of team the Red Wings really are. I don't care if you beat up on a New Jersey Devils I do care. I love, like I said, every point matters. But the New Jersey Devils are bad right now. They're struggling. They're a very good team still, but they're struggling. So keeping them to 16 shots and shutting them out 4-0 is really nice and really makes me feel good. But it doesn't mean as much as playing up to an opponent like the New York Rangers. The Minnesota Wild, same thing. Like this is a team that should be better. Isn't. You took advantage of them. You need to go to the Garden like you did with Boston and prove you can compete with this team. That's the makings of a team that's ready for the playoffs.
I think the Red Wings front office should just completely make the number one priority making Brian Fisher feel good. I
agree. And you know what would make me feel really good is a Stanley Cup championship. So let's shoot for that. Let's shoot for the moon, baby.
It's funny how that works out.
We ball. Anyway, Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, recapping the Rangers game and previewing the Blackhawks game. Let's see here. Will Patrick Kane play in either of these games? Probably not. He's probably still rehabbing.
I'm going to go with no.
We'll go with no. Any final thoughts? Did you say we ball? I don't even remember.
I just did, yeah.
Whatever. We ball! Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.